Okay, so I'm now being joined by Elaine Beatz. Elaine, thank you for appearing on Open Sources with us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to join you.
Oh, well, it's our pleasure. We like to have all the candidates on, and for people who may not be aware, because I think it's been a while since we've had a Marxist-Leninist candidate running in a Guelph election. We're used to having a Communist Party candidate. I think that is due to the beginnings of the Communist Party of Canada being in Guelph, what was once the outskirts of Guelph, but is actually now like the center of town. But um, for people who may not appreciate the difference, could you begin by talking about the Marxist-Leninist Party and maybe how you differ from the Communist Party?
Well, um, the party started on the basis of needing a party that represented the working people, so workers could take a stand on their own. And what was found is that that was lacking. But the Communist Party was um, participating in electoral politics, and the thing, not electoral politics as such, but they have become part of what we now know as the cartel of parties.
Mm,
So the cartel of parties is effectively serves to come to the same answer for the working people. We are on the outside. The Canadian people are outside of Parliament. They're on the inside. They make decisions for us. And the electoral law keeps everyone marginalized.
okay.
We have no say in decisions that get made. We have no say on important matters of war and peace. We have no say in the direction of the economy. So the issue is that how do we get to that point where we can have a say in those things?
So more decentralized then, less of a reliance on a party apparatus, as it were. I mean, you're
I
kind of
wouldn't.
you
I
wouldn't say
wouldn't.
that? Okay.
I wouldn't say that. I
Okay.
wouldn't say that. What I wouldn't say that. I'm not sure what you're like. You're in terms of organization. Is that what
Mhm.
you're looking for?
Yeah,
It's central. It's based on central organization. Like
okay.
that's the issue. Like how can we focus all of the energies that we have without being organized, without a an apparatus,
Mm,
for lack of organization. Like we're calling on people to join in discussion on
okay.
how, for instance, first of all, how do we have a positive outcome in this election for the Canadian people? How do we, after the election, continue discussion with everyone? Like that's not lack of centralization. That's focusing a discussion so that we can achieve the results that will benefit, that will be for the in the interest of the working people of Canada and
Okay.
the people of Canada generally, all of us who are kept out. So if we can have a discussion, if we can meet, have a discussion on first and foremost, what are what outcome in this election will benefit the people of Canada.
Mm,
So that may mean voting for parties that aren't that are not part of the cartel. Maybe it may mean that. It
okay.
depends because these are people who have refused to take a stand in the parliament on questions of Palestine. They've
Mm,
refused to recognize it as a genocide. They've refused to impose an arms embargo. They say, yes, we have an arms embargo, but um, there are those who say that the weapons are still going to the US, and from the US to, they're still making their way to the IOF. So the issue is how do we participate? How can we change the outcome so that it will benefit us, or at least not leave them with impunity to do what they want to do after the election is over. And the same comes with whatever the outcome is. We need to continue discussing how do we hold whatever power we have in our hands after the election is over to continue just to continue to discuss what's going on in society, what's happening, what is the impact on us, how can we participate to whatever in whatever way we can to change what's happening.
So the goal is for voters. Voters want an outcome, and then they vote for the party that reflects that outcome, and then there is an ongoing discussion. In that, I think the way you're getting at is that most parties operate as the elections as the end of voter interaction. They elect members of parliament who then go and do the things that the party does. But the Marxist-Leninist view is that that's actually not the end of engagement. That's the beginning of a new process of engagement because the point is the goal, not voting for people to enact a goal.
Yes, I think that, yeah.
Okay.
Because you're right. Right now, as soon as you cast your ballot, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You're done. And don't bother saying anything until for the next 4 years because you're just interfering with what's our what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that mandate that they claim, for instance, in the provincial election, when you look at the entire polity, all of those who were eligible to vote, the person who claimed the mandate to operate with impunity has less than 20% of the vote.
Right.
What kind of democracy is that?
Mm.
So we need to change the electoral laws in Canada so that we have, first of all, a say as to who the candidates will be. We're able to participate in developing a mandate for those candidates. And after they're elected, we have a process through which we can recall those candidates.
Mm.
So, because what else does representation, like what does it mean if we have if they're not representing us, they're not speaking we have no power to speak in our own name and have that reflected in decisions that get made. Anyway, all of these are things to be sorted out, but it's part of it has to start with changes to the electoral law. Because as it is, there's no even playing field.
Yeah.
We think that it is the process that should be funded and not the parties. Because if it's the process that's funded, then that means that all of the candidates have to receive the same information. They have to receive these returning officers do their best to make sure everyone has the same. They're treated the same way that way. It's not meant to be a slight on Elections Canada. However, when it comes to the way that the cartel parties are treated in terms of news, in terms of they are the news, wherever they are throughout the electoral campaign is news. Whatever every word that comes out of their mouth is provided as information for the polity.
Right.
The fringe parties or they're just small parties.
Yeah.
They're small parties, and but they're treated as fringe, marginal, and peripheral to the electoral outcome. Or they're an interference. They get in the way because they take votes away, all that kind of thing. Anyway, at the same time, when you look at the numbers, there's 16, I believe, participating in this election.
Mm-hmm.
It means that there are all kinds of ideas that people are trying to put out there, and it's not easy being a small party and running and keeping it registered. So they have all kinds of ideas that they want to discuss with the polity. And so everyone should be informed of every candidate that is running in their riding equally. And that information should be provided by the elections process and not through giving money to the parties in various ways or parties collecting money in various ways to run their campaigns.
I think you're addressing something that I think a lot of people feel fundamentally that the electoral system itself needs, to be charitable, needs work. Um, I think I'm always up for that discussion. I do wonder, however, if this election is the time for that discussion. And from the things you're talking about here, the things you want to fight for, how hard is it to get that attention in an election where it seems to be all about the shouty orange man in the White House right now? He seems like it seems that Donald Trump is a bigger has a bigger role in the Canadian election than, frankly, even some of the major party leaders do.
And it's not called foreign interference.
It's no, no. That's a good point.
So the question is, what do these let's face it, it's basically reduced to a choice between two candidates is how it's being presented, basically, right?
Mm,
So that's the pressure. I'm not saying that that's the outcome, but certainly that's how it's being set up. So we have Canada Strong or we have Canada First. But what is it that either of those parties stand for that's different from each of them? What outcome for the Canadian people will result if either of them comes to power?
mm,
Is it the people whose rights are going to be affirmed? Are their needs going to be met as a result of the changes to, these changes are, they throw around nation building and sovereignty as if there's something that will benefit the people, because in and of themselves, those things they could. Nation building in our name in a way that results in meeting the needs of people, in providing a direction for the economy that has manufacturing, not just tearing resources out of the ground or ripping and shipping, as it's called,
mm.
and providing no processing, no manufacturing, nothing for the Canadian people as a result of developing those resources that we have. Where does it land? Like, who benefits from that? Will
Mm.
it be the Canadian people? And what they don't tell you is what is it that they've already given away? They make it sound as if they have a say over all our resources.
Mm.
And when you listen to the man in Queen's Park, you would think that he has full power over the ring of fire. Really? There's been full consultation. This is what the Canadian people want. This is what the um, Indigenous peoples want. There's been full consultation. So what is it that will what will be the outcome of either of those two coming to power that will benefit the Canadian people? That's what people need to think about. That's what they need to talk about,
Mm.
because this is we're being led to believe these are the people who will stand up
Mm.
to the Canadian people or to that man. But it's is it true? Are
Right.
they just the best deal makers?
Mm.
Because he's always looking for a deal, we're told. So how can we have an outcome that will assist the Canadian people?
Hmm. I guess how do you propose then? I was looking at the roll call of Marxist-Leninist candidates. I think my math, I could have miscounted, but I think you've got about 35 candidates nationwide.
That's correct.
Okay, I did count right. What do you know? I'm ran out of fingers and toes at 20. But the just to just look at the math though, it's 343 seats. What can 35, if, Marxist-Leninists are lucky enough to win all the seats they're contesting, what can 35 Marxist-Leninist MPs do against those big political machines you're talking about, or even like a smaller than number than that? Like, let's suppose you are lucky enough to be Guelph's next MP. What can you do as an independent MP to shake things up?
You remember a man named Elijah Harper?
Yes, I do.
That's one man who made a difference, didn't he?
Hmm.
There's a man running in Hamilton. His name is Rolf Gerstenberger, and many people are aware of who that is, at least in Hamilton.
Hmm.
He was president of um, Local 1005 of the USW Local 1005 for several years. So, and during that time, they fought um, CCAA and showed it. He and the workers together showed what a fraud it was.
Mm.
So he's well known in Hamilton, and the fight is to get it known that he's running. When it was first announced that who the candidates in Hamilton Mountain were, his name was not mentioned, even though he was the first to register, be fully
Mm.
registered, not just announced.
Hmm.
So these are the things that are being fought, and that is the someone who of that profile, who has that history. Such a person can make a great deal of difference in the House of Commons because, for instance, when the Nazi in the House of Commons was given two standing ovations,
Hmm.
not a single one said a word.
Mm.
Couldn't someone have made a difference at such a time to have taken a stand? So even one person in the House of Commons can make a difference. Yes, they have these backbenchers have very little power, but there are times to speak. There are stands to be taken. You have your role as an MP. You have your office. It's not impossible.
Mm. I would agree. I want to talk just a bit about some of the policy because I did go to the trouble of looking through the Marxist-Leninist policy. One of the phrases that stuck out to me was a self-reliant economy. And
Mhm.
in all the talk about trade and our reliance on uh, foreign countries for our economy, could you talk a bit about what a self-reliant economy looks like?
Well, a self-reliant economy would be one where, when it comes to production, you need to have production taking place in your country. You need to have the tools and the machines to build the replacement parts should things break down. You need to be able to keep that running. You need to be able to have food sovereignty,
Hmm.
which isn't impossible given the developments that are happening in food production. The sovereignty in terms of, um, well, economic sovereignty, political sovereignty, and what about um, military defense sovereignty? Because
Mm.
we in all this talk, there's no discussion on getting Canada out of NATO and NORAD. Instead,
Mm.
there's talk about, for instance, through Melanie Joly at the ministerial conference in Brussels, April 3rd and 4th. She was speaking there, and what she's pledging that we're going to make our full commitment to NATO, and there's discussion even in terms of militarizing the Canadian economy, or the Canadian economy
Hmm.
through our minerals and such. This is not in the benefit of the Canadian people. It's not meeting the needs of the Canadian people. It's not affirming their rights. So this is, anyway, in terms of sovereignty, all those things, aspects have to be addressed. Because without that military sovereignty, without being unhitched, so to speak, from the US war economy and its war plans, and its whole apparatus, how can we be sovereign? How can we talk about sovereignty?
There's a difference, but in your mind then between defense and sort of militarization. Defense doesn't mean militarization.
Well, it may require militarization to some, I don't know, but it does mean that your foreign policy and your defense is not tied to another another entity.
Right. Right, because other we have allies that may be involved in conflicts that we want no part of. You raised Israel earlier as pretty primary example of that. There are a lot of people in this country that don't like how involved we are, even if the government is saying we're not that involved.
Well, precisely. And it's not taking a stand.
Right.
It's not, there were thousands of people on Parliament Hill on Saturday for a National Day of Action calling for an arms embargo, two-way arms embargo. And not a single person came out to address that rally. So, why? Why? You have all these people there. Why wouldn't you come and explain your stand to them?
Right.
Unless what you have to say isn't going to get your votes from really, it can't be that they hold that stand. Otherwise, why wouldn't they take that opportunity to explain what their stand is?
For sure. No, fair enough. As we're kind of running out of time here, I do want to take a minute to, we covered a lot of ground here already on a whole host of issues, but for you personally, what is an issue that you really want to make sure you thoroughly talk about this election whether that's at the on the doorstep at a debate and interviews like this? What is the Elaine Beatz issue that you really want to get out there this election?
Elaine Baetz.
I beg your pardon, Elaine Baetz. Thank you.
But the issue is what I've been telling everyone: the need to change the electoral law is first and foremost, because I said that in nominating me, in going to talk to people, without that, how do we change other things? At the same time, people should consider in this election, there are two candidates. The Vote Palestine platform has been endorsed in this riding by the Green Party candidate and the NDP candidate. So those things should be considered. They only opened the endorsement of the program to those parties that hold a seat in the House. So at the same time, the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada, or the Communist Party of Canada Marxist-Leninist, which is the name it's known by otherwise, has endorsed the platform. You can go to our website and read a great deal about what's happening there, and including in our most recent papers. So that's something to be considered when people are thinking about how to make a difference in this election. Consider if you want to put your vote where it will affirm your conscience, where you can in good conscience vote. Or if you're thinking of not voting because you cannot stomach the thought of casting your vote for any of them, check out what options are available to make that statement, if nothing else, or vote on the basis of keeping them out. Vote for a small party. Vote for someone who is taking a stand that you can agree with.
Yeah. I like that message. I think we have 8 candidates on the ballot in the riding of Guelph, and they cover a whole host of philosophies and programs. And I think you would have a hard time saying that there isn't a single person you wouldn't mind seeing as a member of parliament. Perhaps it will be Elaine Baetz. We'll have to see. But before I let you go, Elaine, would you mind just telling the listeners where else they can get information about you or your campaign?
Absolutely. You can reach our website at www.cpcml. We have a paper there, a number of papers that we run, um, that you're able to subscribe to. If you go scroll to the bottom of the screen, there's a place where you can uh, subscribe to receive our papers. So it's cpcml.ca, as in Communist Party of Canada, Marxist-Leninist. If you go to Elections Canada, there's a link there to the website from next to my name. If you search for Marxist-Leninist, you're bound to get it as well. So there are all kinds of ways to find your way to our website, even though there's a time when you could type in almost any topic and the search engine would bring up one of our papers on that topic, whether it was on the economy or whatever, war, questions of peace and war. These days, you must find this in doing your research. You have to dig a little deeper, be a little more precise, use other engines. So cpcml.ca.
Yeah, Google isn't what it used to be, and I appreciate that. But Elaine Baetz, thank you for your time, and good luck to you in the rest of this campaign. And we'll see you out in the campaign trail.
Thank you. Best wishes for your work.